Hi guys, welcome to the channel. Welcome if you're new. I'm Stacy and today we are going to be painting with my M watercolor palette. I'm discussing all the colors that I have in it. And we are going to be painting this flower with a little branch behind it. This is what my palette looks like. And I really like this palette is what I'm saying in the long form content. The long form content for this video will be up on my Patreon video club tier. If anyone's interested in the long form content, this took 2.5 hours to paint, to draw, and paint, and then put on a little bit of colored pencil. So if you want to paint along, you could join the tier and do that. Okay, so I drew this out with watercolor pencil, and right now I am taking my Quil brush and I am wetting the watercolor pencil to activate it and kind of lock it in a little bit onto the paper. I haven't worked with watercolor pencil very often, so I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just experimenting and seeing what happens. And the shift from the way the pencil looks as to when it's wet is quite vibrant. It gets vibrant. So note to self, right? Always test your watercolor pencils before you put them on the page to see what shift they take. See, that's very vibrant. I would have not chosen that for an underpainting at all. It does end up working out, but yeah, I'm trying hard not to contaminate the white areas too much and failing miserably. Thinking in the back of my mind that I could always go in later with another medium to pull the whites back out, because you can always try to save your piece at the end, right? When you think of the watercolor pencil, I mean, once it's wet down, it doesn't look bad, but putting consecutive colors on top, and getting my dark darks and my light lights was challenging. So I did have to go in and brighten up all the whites because I obliterated them in this step completely. Now I am wetting the background. This is my number 8, I think it is, Quil brush from Grabie. I am not sponsored. I would love to be, but I'm not. I love these brushes. They're pretty great. I got this set. I'm going in and putting in kind of a green background with the leftover paint on my palette, just to clean up that area a little bit. And I don't clean my palette from painting to painting unless I'm doing something specific, where I need a clean palette. Then I will. I mean, I never say never, right? I'm really digging the green. I want it to be a little more vibrant in some areas, so I'm popping in a little more color from this other pile of green. I don't want to fuss with it too much. I am liking some of the variegation in some parts. I got a little carried away with the white or the green getting on my petal there. And it did bleed a little bit. Here I'm putting a touch of darker green here and there, just because I like the granulating kind of effect that it had a little bit. And then we waited for it to completely dry so that we can paint. And I taped this is Arch's 140-pound cold press watercolor paper, taped to the back of a board, which is the back of a drawing pad, one of those thick boards that come on the back of your drawing pads. I save those for back boards. And now I'm discussing mixing a purple if you don't have one. So you can take blue and red, of course, most people know this, and make purples, but different blues and different reds make different shades of purples depending on how they lean. Now, first I took ultramarine and I mixed it with alizarin, which gave like an aubergine color, that eggplant purple, which was not what I was going for. I wanted something more towards dioxazine, so I mixed the ultramarine with quinacridone rose, or sorry, quinacridone red, and got this more dioxazine kind of purple that I was looking for for the purpley parts of the flower. And I use it on the shadows. I kind of use it everywhere. As we go, I'm trying to remember to keep the weights instead of filling in and coloring in. And I'm trying to get the texture of this ruled petal. And we're going to work section by section, one petal at a time, which is why this took so long. And I rushed. I did rush through this painting quite a lot because I knew it was going to take a long time. And it's mostly because I like to get lost in the details. I would have liked to take even more time, just go super slow, and that would have turned this into 2-day painting sessions, two sessions on 2 days. The little stamen part has a bit of yellow glow on it in the reference photo, which is linked below if you want to look at it, and you would like to try to paint that as well, or if you want to paint along on my Patreon. I have gone through and cleaned up my Patreon and cleaned up my categories and fixed it so that it looks prettier, and assigned all the videos yesterday. It took me 3 hours to assign all my videos on Patreon to the correct categories and put the correct tags on them, something I just didn't do for some reason. But I went ahead and cleaned it all up so it's all pretty. And I have 199 videos on my Patreon account right now. So with the video tier, you get access to all the sketch sessions and all of the tutorials, all the vlogs and mini vlogs. And it's only $8 a month, which isn't too bad. I actually have to put May's tutorial up. This is going to be an extra tutorial for the month. I wasn't expecting this to take so long, and I want the long form content somewhere, so I'm going to go ahead and put this one up on Patreon as long form content, like a formal tutorial. This will be the May tutorial, and I also am going to put up a step-by-step drawing lesson this month as well, and included in the sketch sessions. Right now I am popping in the little dark spots on the tips of the stamens, and I think that's how you say that. And just popping in all the darks and all the shadow areas. Right now I'm trying to put in all of the shadows on the separate petals individually, and get the shape of the petal in, and a little bit of texture. See, there's a little dry brushing going on right there. And then paying attention to the direction of my strokes, and trying to keep some whites white, and failing. As you can see, all my white areas are pale pink at this point, which is not a problem. It is fixable. And once again, petal by petal, getting in all of that shadow. And the petals are all of them have a little bit of roll or overlap, which made this a little more complicated than I thought it was going to be. I saw the picture and was like, ooh, I'll paint this one. So I was in my Pixabay, which I haven't been in forever, and I already have a bunch of reference photos saved into my library files, and I have a file full of flowers, and I wanted to paint a flower, so instead of taking the time, because I get lost in sifting, I picked this one, thinking it was just pretty, and it's white, so that'll be simple. Wrong. It's very, very wrong. It's a little more complicated than I thought, due to the fact that white is never white. White reflects or the colors around it on some level. Just like gray is never gray and black is never black. There are other colors in there. You just have to look for them. What way does it lean? And these whites were leaning very, to me, very purple gray or green gray. And I didn't want to use a green gray. So I used the purple that I mixed, or dioxazine purple, if you have it, to do all the shadows and put in all the purple. Right there, I was getting in some of the high contrast areas, the deep darks. There aren't very many on this flower. Um, but that's what I'm doing there. And then trying to keep that crispity little tiny rim of white on all the edges of the flowers was very, very difficult without using some sort of medium to mask that. So masking fluid, which I own and keep forgetting I have. It's in the cabinet at my feet, actually. I should probably pull it out and put it on the desk. I tend to lean more into mixed media when I lose my whites in a piece like this. I love to do watercolor and put colored pencil over the top, or another medium, watercolor with pastels, or watercolor with ink, or any kind of pastel, chalk or oil. Watercolor like this, a base like this, and then going over the top of it with other mediums is really nice. It creates a very, for me, a very nice background and a starting point for the other mediums. Like an underpainting, I guess, would be the easiest way to explain that. And right now, all my petals look like they're merging together and kind of one one petal. It'll get better, I swear. It's a slow process. It's a lot of back and forth and give and take when you're doing something like this to a more realistic level. And most times when I do a flower for the YouTube channel, I will keep it pretty whimsical and less realistic. Realism is a favorite of mine, though. To pick an element and render it realistically, or for the most part, is a favorite. Not the favorite, but a favorite. I do like light and whimsical, super sketchy. I'm kind of all over the map when it comes to creating. I have creative freedom, and no one can take it from me. I'm getting in the shadow of the overlap of the petals. That's what I'm doing right now. There's a weird shadow shape. So instead of painting a petal or a flower or a shape, like the petal shape or the shadow shape, I'm painting the abstract shape. I'm thinking more along the lines of what shape am I looking to create here? Is it cylindrical, triangular? Is it very abstract? And when you're drawing drawing, whatever, something like this, for me, drawing the abstract shape or the negative space is much more helpful than trying to render the exact petal. And it rolls here and it folds there. And I'm not thinking so much about that as I am what shape am I creating in reference to the other shapes around it. And right now I'm trying to get the feeling of this. I had to turn the page because I wasn't getting the right sweep of the the brush. Trying to make it feel like this is the part of the petal that's rolled up in front of. It's not quite opened all the way. Dropping in more shadow on this petal, and once again it's a lot of back and forth and working from one spot to another. If one spot is wet, I don't want to work on the adjacent section because it'll bleed, the colors will bleed and move where I don't want them to. I forgot to I'm going in and putting in a layer of purple on the bud that is behind the flower that is not opened yet. And then this petal here is very kind of wrinkly, and it's more green gray than purple gray. So I put a little bit of green and purple together to make this color, this very shadowed petal right here. And it's kind of bent on itself a bit and twisted, so it's not a traditional petal shape, which is fun for me. I like abstract shapes, so. And trying to keep the petal on the front sort of separate from the bud in the back and not merge them into one thing was a bit challenging due to the darkness of the petal. And I'm using straight dioxazine purple with very, very little water, almost no water at all, to get the crispy darks and a little bit of outlining, a little bit of darks here and there and smudging with my finger because I don't want them too dark, but I definitely want a bit of contrast here and there on the certain parts of the petals where they overlap, where there's just an edge of shadow. And I'm going in and getting the little stamens so that it looks like many, because it is a little circle of them, many little stamens all packed together tightly. So I'm using the very tip of this brush to crisp up. Oh, I goofed there. Clean it up a little bit and go back in and get those darks in, and made a little boo-boo there. Pick that up and just keep going. A little bit of dark on the edge of the petal where it overlaps on the branch, but then I didn't want to start the branch right away. I do that last. On this petal, I want to get some of the each petal has a little bit of creases and folds, and I'm air quoting, you can't see me, lines on it, indicating direction and shape. So that's what I'm doing there, is trying to get that particular petal kind of waves on itself. Kind of like folded fabric. That's what I kept thinking about as I was painting, is folded fabric too. If you have a piece of fabric or a coat or a shirt or something, it's a good practice to drape it over something or hang it off of something and then just draw the fabric and all the different folds. It's really good practice for shading and getting the feel of different textures depending on what the fabric is. It's a very good practice. Another layer of paint on this bud, trying to get the darks. And there I am going in with more dioxazine, less water, because this bud is very dark in color and also in shadow because it's behind the flower, and there's hardly any light hitting on it except for that one petal. Ooh, sorry, on the left of this particular petal that I'm painting right now. That one's very bright, so I leave that pretty light. And I actually forget to leave it light and put too much paint on it, but we'll fix that later. I want to do the twig now, so I'm going to use my quinacridone rust and mix that with a bit of the purple to get a deeper brown. Also for cohesiveness in the piece, which is a secondary thought as I'm mixing the color. I need a brown. What brown base do I have that I like? And then how do I incorporate it into the piece with the colors that I already have? So thus throwing in the purple instead of a blue or a gray or a neutral tint to make it a more deep, or green. Could have gone green. And that also would have darkened it up a bit. There I am again, mixing a bolder, darker color to get that contrast so that we get the shape right. So I'm dropping it in on the edge of the branch. And then I'm not liking the texture, so I'm dabbing with my finger to get a more rough texture, which I obliterate later. It's totally fine. There's a little bud on this one, a little green bud, which I probably should have left out, but I put it in anyways. Was thinking about using bleed-proof white to bring all my whites back. And then I decided to show you guys my Prismacolor white colored pencil, which is the best white colored pencil. And I end up just deciding to go in with the colored pencil, which is part of the reason why this took so long to finish up. I am going quickly though, And I'm just cleaning up the shadow areas and making the whites pop and giving a lot of texture on the petals. And yeah, see, texture. I really like texture in all of my pieces. I don't even know why. But I lost all of the crisp white edges, and I put too much shadow in certain areas. So where the light's hitting the high spot on this petal, we get lots of white colored pencil, and it really does work so beautifully. Look at that. Pops that right to the forefront. And then I am pushing back all of this and getting back my bright white through here. And then I forgot that the weird shadow shape that happens with the stamen. So I've kind of back drew into that. And that's another spot on the other side of the petal that got a lot of light. So we're popping that in, making a high spot. A little bit of white here and there on the stamens. And I sharpen my pencil like 1,000 times because this watercolor paper is very rough and it ate through the colored pencil pretty quickly. It's a short little nub now. But the whole point this year is to use the art supplies I have, so using the art supplies I have. Thus breaking out the M. Graham palette. And watercolors are so slow wearing that I'm going to have this palette for years. I've had it for years. I think I've had it for 5 years now. And getting the edge of that petal that folds back on itself. So the dark part is, this little lip is folded back over the dark part. And then the petal behind this one looks like it's merging with, it's not. At any rate, I'm still pushing back the darks and pulling forward those bright whites with the colored pencil. And I'm finding it to be really effective. I'm really falling in love with the piece at this point and feeling more satisfied with where it's going. And that's the name of the game, right? Do what you need to do on your art piece to make it what you want it to be. Honestly, with previous to the colored pencil, I was thinking if I was not recording this, I would have completely gone a different way with the piece. I would have probably gotten out ink pens in an effort to keep this more of a watercolor piece instead of mixed media, which technically now it is mixed media because I added the colored pencil and the bleed proof white, but details. This is mostly a watercolor piece in my very esteemed opinion. Sorry, another yawn. It's past my bedtime. I'm editing this video so I can get it put up tonight because it was supposed to be up yesterday. I'm late. I'm sorry. I'm late. And then, of course, it took a lot longer to paint this than I had intended. When I sat down, I was thinking I'll get this done in like an hour. I was very wrong. 2.5 hours later. Here we are. Yep, just using the edge of the pencil to get in some bits of texture, some direction line. Excuse me, this petal kind of disappeared completely without it. I didn't intend that. So I'm really popping that white and texture on this, cleaning up the edge there where it overlaps the branch, making it nice and crisp. Kicking back some of the purple shadows too with the color. They show right through the colored pencil if you don't use a lot of pressure, which is nice. And look at that. Look at that crisp edge on that now. Oh, dreamy. And still going through. Same thing that I did on the other. And then I spotted that up there and that up there and that over there. So I jump around quite a lot when I'm creating from spot to spot, which is completely natural. Sharpening again. And this whole petal was supposed to be pretty bright white, with the exception of the couple of shadows. So I'm pushing back all that pink that I got, and then using my paintbrush to dust off the little colored pencil particles. It's one of my dry extra paintbrushes in my cup on my table. instead of using my hand, because I do lotion and oil my hands quite regularly. I have very, very dry skin. So I use a lot of lotion and oils on my hands throughout the day, and I try to be mindful of my art because I know that that's my natural way to do things in my life. Got that bright white on that petal back there, and then I'm fixing up this petal to make it look like it's part of the flower because I got carried away with that green, and popping back some whites and continuing on with the bud. A lot of the bud, the bright side of the bud got obliterated with my heavy-handed painting. And here I am pulling it back with the colored pencil. And there we go. Cool, cool. And there was a spot there, so I'm cleaning that up. And now I am going to put in a little more texture on the branch, and I decided that it was too dark. It doesn't need to be that dark, so I'm lifting up right there, and then I'm going to go in with a softer, my nickel Quin Gold, which is a really beautiful color, to make a high spot, a high highlight spot there without using white. And I didn't want to use yellow either on the top and bottom. And that made the twig look more rounded, just naturally right there. Get that little spot there so I don't forget about it. And then this one. And I leave the little bud. I drop some green on it and I lift it up, and I want it to look kind of fuzzy. Because I think it's supposed to be, I don't know if they still call it this, but pussy willow with the little soft fuzzy buds on them. I go ahead and heat dry that really quickly because I want to finish this painting up, and I'm using my bleed proof white to put all the speckles that are on this twig, this branch on. And there are big speckles and there's little speckles, and then there's high shine spots that I want to get. So I'm attempting to do that with the bleed proof white, and then more speckles super quickly because, you know, this has been kicked up in speed quite a bit. And I wanted that to look more fuzzy, so I put a little white on there and fudge it out with my finger, and then I'm using this little brush and very, very dry, and the bleed proof white to scribble and make a kind of a highlight texture on the branch, which leans more toward realism for me, that realistic effect. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. We're gonna take off the tape and do a little close-up really quickly, and that is the painting. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And do you like this one? I think it turned out really nice. I'm very happy with it. I would go in probably and do something with the background, but I'm going to leave it the way it is. And yeah, I'll see you guys later in the next one. Thanks for being here. Bye.